Hello and welcome to The Chat, the official podcast of Chatham County Government. I'm Will Peebles with the Public Information Office, and thanks for joining us. We appreciate y'all coming around. And we've got a real treat for you this week. We've got Dr. Angela Bliss, the Floodplain Administrator for Chatham County.
Hey, thanks, Will.
How you doing?
I'm
How's
good,
things
thank you.
going?
So far, so good. We have a new ordinance.
Oh.
So there's a new flood damage prevention ordinance that took effect August 22nd.
Thrilling. I'm very excited
Yes.
to learn about that.
Yes.
But I want to take a real big step back
Okay.
and just go from just the simplest that we can, because to be honest with you, do not really know exactly what you do and what the role of a floodplain administrator is. So let's just start there. How do you become a floodplain administrator, and what do you do once you become one?
So in Chatham County, just like throughout the whole county, but my role is specifically with unincorporated Chatham County and working through development and guiding development in the floodplain. And the floodplain is essentially the whole county, but the FEMA regulated floodplain, known as the Special Flood Hazard Area, are going to be zones AE, A, V, VE. So they're going to be specific zones that you get throughout the county, throughout the city. They're governed by, for Chatham County, they're governed by the Flood Damage Prevention Ordinance as far as the development protocols and events. How do you get to be the floodplain? You get the shortest straw. Now, to be where I'm at, I am a doctorate. I have my doctorate in adult education and science education, and then a background in science. So wanting to take the sciences of the floodplain and the ecosystem function and tie that into a regulatory ability to help maintain floodplain ecological functions, but also guiding development to keep our residents safe. And so a lot of folks either love me or hate me as the floodplain administrator, sometimes both at the same time. But they essentially, with being able to point out this is where the floodplain is important. It acts as a sponge for when our storms come. It acts as a protective barrier for inland communities. But also knowing that we have parcels to be developed that are in the floodplain, how can those be developed to keep the residents safe? And then those that don't live there, they rent it out or they sell it, it keeps those residents safe as well.
So I recently went through the home buying process, and that was
Congratulations.
Thank you. It was thrilling. It was taxing. It was a lot of different things, and it was kind of my first exposure to those federal ratings, the AE, the AE 500, X 500. There's we've got a few here.
Correct.
So that is federally managed, right?
So that, when you talk about X500 and the AE and the VE, those are the FEMA regulatory flood zones. There are communities, like Chatham County is a community that is the unincorporated area. So again, confusing language, but in the unincorporated area or the Chatham County community, we regulate only those AE, VE parcels. So we for the X and the X500, the homes in those zones, you don't have to have a FEMA required flood policy on your mortgage, a federal backed mortgage. You can, and we will encourage you to, because we are so flat and low lying. And a lot of our damage happens in those X and X500s as far as flood damage. So when you purchase a home and you have a federally backed mortgage, should you be in an A, AE, VE, they'll require that flood insurance policy.
Gotcha.
There's a lot of changes that have happened in the flood insurance realm, I guess, in the past couple of years, which has made it a little challenging for administrators to help you buy a home or modify your home to make a cheaper policy or to get that cheaper premium. But we have an insurance advocate. His name is Jeff Brady, and I can share the contact information with whomever needs it. But Jeff has agreed to be our insurance liaison,
Well, that's cool.
our insurance advocate, and so he can help navigate rates and policies.
Yeah, and it's a pretty rapidly changing landscape. And I know this isn't necessarily what I planned out to talk today, but it is it's something that people will be experiencing in the years to come. We went to an insurance company for our insurance,
Yes.
and they wouldn't do it because of the floodplain, because it's in a hurricane-prone zone, is what they said.
You're right. That is changing. There's a lot of things that are coming in as far as tree coverage even that's coming into play. But if anyone has any troubles, they can reach out to us and we can get them that insurance advocate.
So you say that you guys are involved with the AEs and the AE 500s. What does that mean? What do you guys do?
So when it was the AE and then the VE. So those are going to be those are going to be your more active flood. So if you ever see there's a schematic that FEMA has, and it'll show the X500, the AE, and the VE, and know that there's other A, AO, V. There's other zones, but for the sake of unincorporated, we have AE and VE. So those are our regulated floodplain. Those are the ones that if there's any project that a homeowner or a business would like to do, those need to come into the floodplain office for review. And the floodplain office is part of the Department of Engineering. And so they would submit applications for certain levels of development. There'd be a review process to ensure that that development, be it fill and dirt and concrete, or be it an actual home or addition, to make sure that those pieces of development meet the flood damage prevention ordinance. And we review it. It would be approved, and then it is passed on to building safety if it needs a building permit.
Gotcha. So kind of just like a step in the process for if you want to do construction or permitting or anything that you're building in Chatham, unincorporated Chatham
Yes,
County.
and we're to the point of if in doubt, reach out first.
Yeah.
because we another role that we take on are following up with complaints, and so we get numerous complaints each week. About neighbors bringing in dirt, neighbors building decks, neighbors building additions, and so we follow up on those complaints. And if the proper permits are in place and the proper approvals have been gotten, then no problem. But when they haven't been approved or permitted, then there's stop work orders put in place, and the parcel becomes a violation, or the parcel is tagged with a violation to an ordinance. The homeowner becomes responsible for clearing that violation, and so we have had instances where contractors have put homeowners in violation of an ordinance without the owner knowing until they got a certified letter in the mail.
Oof.
And so we're trying to increase our presence and our voice of, hey, if you're in an A, an AE, a VE, please reach out to the floodplain office just to check. Run it through us. I have a great assistant named Kate McCain. I have a great inspector, John Glover. Touch base with us, see if it needs any type of approval, then make that step to building safety for your permit if needed.
Because if you don't do it beforehand,
it comes after.
It can come back.
Yeah.
It's gonna come around eventually. Yeah.
Right. And another good point is, as a homeowner or someone who's making repairs to your home, don't be so trusting that you stay out of the loop in the documentation that's presented to the contractor or that is signed, because as the homeowner, you're liable and you're held accountable for those violations put in place. And so be in the know, check if there's an approval letter, check what the permit says, check those documents that you have that are tied to your parcel. And then you, as a new homeowner, you definitely want to be in the know, and you want to protect yourself, and you're paying for work to be done. Ensure that work is done compliantly, because you're following the rules as the homeowner, so make sure your contractor is also following the rules.
That's really good advice. Yeah. So y'all reach out.
Let us know.
We're here for you.
Yes. We are.
So you, in planning for this, you mentioned the community rating program, or CRS.
Yes.
What is that? How does that work?
So that was what I would like to tie it into your prior comments. So thank you.
Nice.
That was exactly what. So yes, good teamwork. So there's so much effort that's put into the CRS rating by our community staff. So we have a lot of personnel time and dedication going into this community rating system. And what this program is, so as a Chatham County community, we're a volunteer in the NFIP, the National Flood Insurance Program. That volunteer participation allows access for our residents if there's flood damage. It allows them access to funding. By being in the CRS community, we can earn points in these activities that we elect to do. And so one is having a higher regulatory standard. So our flood damage prevention ordinance scores higher in the CRS rating system because it's more restrictive. We're trying to keep our community safer and our residents safer. And so there's more pieces that are inserted into our ordinance that are more restrictive. So we earn points there. We're working towards doing watershed master plan. That will score us more points. We work on communication and outreach to those that have been flooded, those that are near those that have been flooded, or those that are in the floodplain that might be flooded. So we have this great reach of community outreach for education that scores points. So we just, based on our 3-year cycle visit last September, we just received notice that preliminary we're still at a class 5 with enough points to be a class 3.
Okay.
So what does that mean to you as a homeowner? That means that as a class 5 community, you're receiving 25% off of your premium for your flood insurance policy.
Oh, yeah, because it's geographically based. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it used to be that you would only receive that discount if you were in an A, AE, or VE. But with the changes with the flood insurance policies that have taken place, everyone who holds a policy is now eligible for that discount on the premium. And so as we work towards these prerequisites and we maintain the score that we received, we could potentially be a class 3, which means there would be a 35% discount.
Whoa.
So there's incentive for you to keep your community safer, and your community receives a greater discount.
That's awesome. So,
Yeah.
so like, how is that guaranteed? You know, is that just something deep within the insurance laws that says, and if you're doing Chatham County, they're class 5 now, or they will be class 3, and that means 25 versus 35.
So every 3 years, because we are a class 5, and that's a pretty steep discount.
Yeah.
We're evaluated every 3 years. Other communities that are lower class, higher class, because higher class is a lower discount.
5 to 1. One is the best. Yeah.
Yes. So sorry for that slip. So those communities are evaluated every 5 years because it's not that great of a discount. So we're under a stricter lens because we do provide a very large discount. I think the last estimate I received was in all the policies, we have about 11,000 policies in our unincorporated area, and it's about, I think it's $8 million discounts that's received on those policies.
Hey,
so
that's awesome.
It's a large number.
Thank you so much. Thanks for doing all the work to do that.
Well, it
That's
takes
rad.
a team, and I'll tell you, we're always, I need to do this, I need to have these changes, I'm going to ask for a variance. And if we allow a variance to our ordinance, it's interpreted that we're not enforcing our ordinance. It jeopardizes our discount. It jeopardizes our class standing. If we're ever held not, or if we're ever audited or evaluated and found that we're not enforcing our ordinance, it's an automatic retrograde to a 10. And so we would lose that whole discount. And so it's real important when folks say, oh, I'm just going to ask for a variance, I'll get a variance for that. And it can't happen. There's a process where you can apply for one, you can appeal one. If it's granted, then there is that other flip of the coin of what does that mean for the community. Because we've allowed this variance, it's seen that we're not enforcing our ordinance, therefore we're retrograded.
Yeah.
And so it's really important to have the support of staff, contractors, commissioners, to have that whole buy-in package, to understand this is the ordinance, this is what has to be enforced. The other thing that's important to note, because we're in hurricane season, if you have your flood insurance policy, and if you're damaged by a flood during a storm or any time throughout the year, if the damages are over 50% of your home, that can trigger some improvements that need to be made to your home so that your home then is compliant with current standards, current ordinance. And so if anyone is listening ever experiences damage, talk to us to see, before you go get your permit, have you met that 50% of your home value, not the land, just the home? And if so, let's work through making your home compliant before you go for a permit, so then you're not having to come back to us. So that's, again, another educative piece where we can reach the homeowner before they go for a permit and then have to come back to us for additional documentation.
For sure. And, this is like when you get these folks, when they call in, they're usually going through a really tough time.
Yes.
Probably for some, probably the most stressful time they've ever been
Yeah,
through.
and it doesn't even matter damage. Even
Yeah.
a home construction is very stressful.
Yeah, I believe it. So I don't know, how do you put people at ease in that when you're interacting with them, when you're laying out these facts for them, like what is your approach to that?
I think when they come through kind of as a clean slate, like, hey, we're building a home, here's what, that is an easier tough time. Because you have those that are understanding of the ordinance, understanding the rationalization of why, and then the more flexible the individual or the contractor is, or the more flexibility there is in the conversation, the better experience it is. I've dealt with some that are very much structured in what they want. It's not possible on the lot they purchased, because you can't do this in the limois. You can't. So those are tough situations. I don't know if it's ever. They're very kind people, and there's very upset people, and there's very passionate people, and I get that, and I would be the same. But I just can't stress doing that due diligence before the purchase is made on the land, or before the purchase is made on the home, is just safety. As far as what can I do? Can I do what I want? If I can't do what I want, can I do what I'd like? Can I do something else that'll work? But how do you diffuse it? I have to stay to the language of the ordinance. No matter who I'm speaking with, the consistency of here's what the ordinance says. And we, in the new iteration of the ordinance, we've tried to make it much more easier to read, not jump through different sections to find what you need, to define more of the terms that we're using. We went above and beyond what FEMA definitions were, just to help with our residents and our community. And so just helping folks understand why, yes, but when it comes to it, they don't care why. They're really upset. I get it, but this is what the ordinance says.
Right.
And so those conversations are had, it seems, on a daily basis, sometimes multiple times a day. And then what I like to do is pull those that are on the project team together. Kate and I have done really well over the past year and a half or 2 years of getting folks into the office. If there's questions that an email or a phone conversation aren't solving, then let's come in and talk it through. Bring in your plans. Bring in some options that are possible. Don't bring in things that you don't want. Bring me options that are possible. Let's bring your contractor. Bring your architect. And then let's sit around the table and look at your plans and see. Because I tell you, when you throw out BFE, CRS, AEV, like you're throwing these acronyms, but if I can visually say, here's your existing grade, here's what your base flood elevation is, here's where your first floor needs to be, then they can see I'm at a 5-foot existing grade in a base flood elevation or an AE of 10. That means that my living floor can be at 13. Wow, that's an 8-foot garage that I'm going to have to construct. And so helping visualize what the home might look like, what the floors are, is really helpful. So I try and get folks in if need be.
Sometimes it just blows my mind, like all of the things that the county does. And I'm not just like gassing the county up, but man, this is nuts, Yeah, it didn't even cross my mind. You think about that with like developers and stuff, but just people building houses. So I do want to talk to you about the new ordinance. I know you guys worked pretty hard on that. How did that come about? What need arose that you guys were like, we got to rewrite this? And what are the changes that were made?
Oh, good. That's multi-part question. So the ordinance. So Michael Blakely was here, and he retired in January of '24. We actually were working on ordinance revisions when he was on staff. I think I was pulled in the summer, I think, before he left. So it has been a very long labor of love. What prompted the changes before Mr. Blakely headed out was our residents, our contractors, there was a level of confusion. And then my background being in adult education, focusing on science education, there was some issues I saw with how we're communicating expectations, how are we communicating the need to know sections. We are held to follow a model ordinance that the state puts forward, and so you're held to that framework, but we have flexibility in adding to it and making it more regulatory restrictive. We have that option. So we added definitions that were causing confusion. We tried to we actually flipped it on its head, and so we took the definitions that are in the model ordinance in the back. We put those definitions in the front to model how our other ordinances are in place for the county. So consistency in setup or layout. Then we added our new definitions to it, and then things were in multiple sections. Things were strangely, it was hard to locate. So if I'm trying to guide you as a homeowner or a contractor through, we were looking through different sections when that might have been intuitive for me because that's my job. It was not intuitive for our residents and our folks coming into the communities to develop. And so we focused on making it kind of a better package of go to general standards. If you're in the AE with a designated floodway, go to this section as well. So that way they're checking out a general section and a specific flood zone question or section, and then they have better definitions.
And a glossary at the front, you
Right,
can just
right.
go on back. Like, what was AE 500?
Oh my gosh, yeah. And so yeah, it was just really important for it to be usable. And sometimes it can be hard when you're bridging the gap between regulatory and practical.
Yeah.
So it's like, we want you to use it. We've got to follow it.
Some things are just confusing by nature,
They
and
are.
that's why they need science educators like you to help us understand it.
Get through it. So we hope. We know that it's not perfect. We know that there might still be areas of confusion. But it holds us to the CRS credits that we have gotten in the past. And it hopefully better defines some of the wording that folks were having a hard time with, because they're looking to FEMA guidance, they're looking to those FEMA technical bulletins, which are valuable, but when you're dealing with a community who's more restrictive than the minimum, then it's a lot to navigate.
Yeah, it sounds like it, but it sounds like you do a great job of helping them navigate. You've helped me
Try,
navigate.
we
I've learned a lot on this podcast today. I would say more than I usually learn on the podcast.
We have had a large growing curve or a learning curve, but it's been really nice for the engineers that I've worked with, not the departmental ones, they're always great, but those that are doing the elevation certificates with us, or the architects who are helping to design the homes, the contractors who are putting them on the ground and building them. It's been a great group to work with. I've enjoyed the help that the Home Builders Association has provided. They offered the feedback on the flood damage prevention ordinance draft. And the contractors have just been very helpful in navigating questions with the designs and what about this option. So they've taught me a lot, and I continue learning from them. So it's nice to have those people submitting applications that are teaching me as well. So.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Dr. Bliss, thank you so much for joining us. Is there any parting message that you want residents of Chatham County? What is like the top of your list when you tell people about the work that you do?
Keep the forefront of all that we do is keeping the community safe. Sometimes I feel that we get added to Christmas card lists. Sometimes I feel we get removed from Christmas card lists. But I would love there to be a general message of we're here to keep you safe. And sometimes keeping you safe also means keeping your neighbors safe. And so I've been asked many times, why are you a regulator? You're supposed to help keep me safe, and you're supposed to protect me. Yes, but I also have to protect your neighbors and those down the road and the floodplain. And so being educated on what zone you're in, but not just that. Sometimes there's a false sense of security, especially for our X zone and X500 folks. They'll call me asking for floodplain advice, and you're out of my regulatory perspective. So you're not under the regulatory guidelines of the FDPO, the Flood Damage Prevention Ordinance. But flood insurance is, if you can afford it, please have it if you are not required to have it. Damages come, damages to our exome come. But remember that if there's ever questions, I'm here to help. It's my job. Emails are best. So if you need my email, but just stay safe, stay informed, and then call if you are in a flood zone before you act, so that I can help guide you to not prevent a headache later.
You got it. Well, Dr. Bliss, thank you so much for coming on and honestly teaching me so many things today. I've learned a lot. I've got a lot more questions too, but that'll be that's the next podcast. That's great. And I hope you guys keep us on your Christmas list too. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of The Chat. We'll be back in another couple weeks with another one. Y'all have a good day. Thank you.